and welcome to Freewave TV. I'm Paige Freeman, bringing you the latest in maritime news from around the world. Today in maritime news, 13 people are dead and hundreds of others injured after a container accident in Aqaba. Shipping data shows parts of housing market slowdown. 2 startup cruise lines progressing despite Russian sanctions. A shipping company partners with Shell for liquefied natural gas supply. An African port signs deal to go digital. A cruise ship is forced to cancel the remainder of its trip after hitting iceberg. A shipping company becomes the first to receive award from Green Marine Group. A design is approved for world's first hydrogen-powered maritime autonomous surface ship. In our top story today, a reported 13 people have been killed and 251 others have been injured after a container carrying 25 tons of chlorine dropped onto a deck of a ship at Aqaba Port in Jordan yesterday. The deputy chief of the Aqaba Region Ports Authority, Haj Hassan, informed the media that a cable carrying the container of the toxic gas broke, and when the container dropped, the gas escaped, releasing dangerous yellow clouds into the area. Residents who live nearby were advised to close their windows and stay at home. Right now, less people have been on the hunt for homes as mortgage rates have been going up. New shipping data shows the slowdown of the housing market is appearing in the Asian supply chain. The numbers show that there are less orders for home building construction materials like lumber, and shipments of appliances are on the decline. In China and Vietnam, there are less furniture and home decoration orders coming in. Despite the information, orders for apparel, sporting goods, and e-commerce are still going strong. Swan Hellenic and Havila are overcoming difficulties to get their startup cruise lines running. They were both impacted with the sanctions on Russia as they had financed their new ships with the Russian-owned GTALK. Swan Hellenic placed a bid for its new ship because Helsinki shipyard couldn't deliver the vessel as a result of the sanctions. The shipyard yesterday announced that Swan Hellenic had won the auction. Meanwhile, Havila was in a similar situation, but now its ship Havila Capella has resumed sailing today after being laid up for 11 weeks. Shipping company CMA CGM has signed an agreement with Shell, which includes a multi-year liquefied natural gas supply agreement. Under the agreement, Shell will supply LNG to CMA CGM's 13,000 20-foot equivalent unit vessels in the Port of Singapore beginning in the second half of next year. In addition to the agreement, the companies also signed a memorandum of understanding, which includes the advancement of low-carbon marine fuels for new and existing vessels, as well as the delivery of innovative technical solutions. In the future, the companies plan to expand the partnership in the road and air sectors as well. In Africa, a Tanzanian port is set to be going digital. Fortress Company Limited has signed a contract with manufacturing company Wärtsilä Voyage for a digitalization project at Malindi Port. Under the deal, Wärtsilä will install its vessel's traffic services system along with VTech Technologies terminal operating system at the port for Zanzibar Ports Corporation. The company will also implement its newest technologies for the project. The digitalization of the port is expected to help ZBC handle operations and compete with East African ports amid the large growth in the global supply chain. In the United States, a Norwegian cruise ship had to cancel the last part of its June 21st voyage after it hit an iceberg. On Saturday, the Norwegian Sun was passing through the Hubbard Glacier when it encountered dense fog, which resulted in it striking a small iceberg. The cruise ship then skipped its next port of call, Skagway, and instead headed to Juneau for damage assessment. Passengers on board the ship were sailed back to Seattle, Washington, and the Norwegian Sun is expected to return there on Thursday morning. CMA CGM is in the news once again, as it has become the first major shipping company to be awarded the Green Marine Europe label. The Green Marine Group is a voluntary environmental certification program for the North American maritime industry and Europe, and assisted by Surfrider Foundation Europe. The group focuses on issues relating to marine transportation, ranging from air, water, and soil quality to community relations. According to a press release from CMA CGM, The company joined the Green Marine program in 2021 to measure the carbon impact of its activities and move towards standard solutions in a collaborative approach. As the maritime industry continues to find ways to help the environment, a design for the world's first hydrogen-powered maritime autonomous surface ship has been approved. British startup company Aqua Ocean reported that it has completed prototype testing and received design approval for key components as it looks to introduce commercial decisions that can be manufactured at scale so that the cost of using the technology can be cut down. Part of the design approval is its hydrogen system control engineering system and electrical power distribution systems. And now, here's the news making headlines around the world. In the city of Kremenchuk in central Ukraine, far from the front line, exhausted firefighters and soldiers banded together to force themselves through the debris of a shopping mall attacked by a Russian missile to search for survivors. So far, no survivors were found. There is a death toll right now of 18 people, with 36 people missing. Ukraine once again is using satellite technology to learn more about its enemy. While watching satellite surveillance, it seems as though there was a queue of evidence highlighting that Russian forces in occupied areas of Ukraine have been systematically stealing grain and other produce from Ukrainian local farmers. With first-hand remarks from Ukrainian farmers claiming that the Russians stole their crops, paired alongside GPS data amplifying the claims would appear to be true. The G7, a group of the 7 economic powers, announced on Tuesday that they have decided to investigate what it would look like if they were to prohibit the shipping of Russian oil that has been sold for more than a specific amount. The group is looking into using price caps as a method to prevent Moscow from profiting after its invasion of Ukraine caused forced energy prices to soar. This would lessen the impact of Western efforts to cut back on imports of Russian oil and gas. In its highest estimate yet, the United Nations Human Rights Office said on Tuesday that 1.5% of Syria's pre-war population had been killed during the conflict dating back to March 2011. The disorder emerged following a string of peaceful protests against Bashar al-Assad's rule and evolved into a multi-sided conflict that soon claimed traction with foreign powers. A 101-year-old man who remains protected under German law has received a sentence of 5 years in regard to getting convicted on 3,518 counts of accessory to murder. The man was said to have been an SS guard at a Nazi concentration camp in Germany during World War II. The man continues to deny his involvement and participation in the Nazi regime, and his lawyers agreed and argued that there were no evidence that he had actively assisted in any killings. Prosecutors were quick to shut down the denials and equipped the court with the several documents containing his name, date, and place of birth to argue that he did work at the camp. Finland and Sweden are continuing to face one major obstacle when it comes to wanting to join NATO: Turkey. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan held firm on his stance, insisting on seeing results and not hearing words when it comes to addressing the issues of supporting militants Turkey views as terrorists and arms embargoes on Ankara. After meeting with the Nordic nations just yesterday, Turkish officials said that Western diplomats told Reuters a breakthrough was unlikely. After 2 people were killed and 21 injured on Saturday at a Pride event in Oslo, the national police chief said extremists consider LGBTQ people the enemy. They described the attack as an Islamist terrorism, saying all upcoming Pride events should be canceled for safety reasons. Standing in solidarity was a string of LGBTQ members holding a rally and holding up placards with defiant messages such as "You can't cancel us" and "Sexual freedom." The attacker was arrested by police officers minutes after the attack, and police are still investigating the attacker's motive. According to France's health minister, in order to derail the new COVID variant, people should go back to wearing masks, especially on public transit. Over the past 24 hours, there have been 17,601 fresh infections, making it the highest figure of infections since April 18th. Today in China, the quarantine period for incoming travelers is halved. after substantially easing COVID-19 restrictions that discouraged cross-border travel and caused foreign aircraft to operate at only 2% of pre-pandemic levels. For the fourth day in a row, the heat wave in Tokyo this month hit a record high, breaking a nearly 150-year-old record. A list of grievances ahead of the national election notes the cost of electricity, which is among the top concerns cited by voters in polls that show the government's support is fading. The election is in just 2 weeks. For the next 2 weeks, any unnecessary purchase of petrol is banned in Sri Lanka. Only buses, trains, and vehicles used for medical services and transporting food will be allowed to fill up the fuel. The South Asian nation is in talks over a bailout deal as it struggles to pay for imports such as fuel and food. On Monday, over in San Antonio, Texas, the bodies of 46 dead migrants were discovered inside a tractor trailer. This is one of the deadliest incidents of human smuggling along the U.S.-Mexico border. The firefighter that found the abandoned truck said they found stacks of bodies and no signs of water in the truck, which was found next to railroad tracks in a remote area on the city's southern outskirts. Yesterday in Colombia, an overnight riot in a prison in the southwestern Colombian city of Tuluá killed 48 inmates. The head of the National Prisons Agency said this was one of the worst incidents of recent prison violence in the country. The director of the INPEC prison agency went as far as to tell local radio a fire even erupted during the prisoner protests. Dozens were evacuated, while 30 people remained injured. Today, Jeffrey Epstein's go-to girl, Ghislaine Maxwell, is set to be sentenced following her conviction on 5 counts of sex trafficking. The 60-year-old socialite is set to hear 6 of her victims' stories prior to her sentencing. Maxwell's lawyers argue that somewhere between 4 years and 3 months and 5 years and 3 months would be an appropriate sentence. Some estimate that more than 160 women and girls may have been victims of Jeffrey Epstein. We're now going to take over to Jean-Louis, who's going to share what's going on in the sports world.
It is June 28th, 2022, and you're kicking it with Jean-Louis of Freewave TV. And from the States to across the pond, here are your sports stories of today. The crisis surrounding Mercury star Brittney Griner continues, as less than a week after her wife's plea to bring her back to safety, it was reported that the 31-year-old would have her detention time extended by 6 months. The ruling was made at yesterday's preliminary hearing, where Russia decided that the center will stand trial in Moscow on Friday, July 1st. Griner has been detained since late February, when she was arrested for carrying hashish oil in her luggage, a banned substance in Russia. Focus groups and family have each reached out to President Joe Biden and the administration for some action to return the basketball star home. But of course, as of now, it's to no avail. In Formula One, social issues are back in effect, as following a podcast interview, retired racer Nelson Piquet is on the hot seat following racist comments towards the current star Lewis Hamilton. The Brazilian was said to mention the N-word in describing the 37-year-old and the controversy between he and reigning Grand Prix champ Max Verstappen. Now, the F1 and Hamilton each released statements regarding the matter, with the league stating that the racist language is, quote, unacceptable in any form and has no part in society. Hamilton, who was acknowledged by the F1 as one of its ambassadors, expressed his experiences with racism within the sport in the past, explaining that the social climate today, its behavior cannot be tolerated now, ending his sentiments, stating in Portuguese, let's focus on, quote, changing the mindset. Wimbledon Open finalist Matteo Berrettini pulls out of the tournament after testing positive for COVID-19. It was reported on the morning of his first-round matchup against Christian Garin. The star will hit the sidelines unable to seek vengeance on last year's winner, Novak Djokovic. Now, speaking of the Devil, Djokovic and Andy Murray are among the victors in the first-round matchups yesterday. As today, we still have many heavy hitters on the board as well. At the time of recording, Nadal, who's coming off a Grand Slam win, is in his first set matchup against up-and-coming Argentinian Francisco Carandulo and is currently tied 3-3. Also live is some women's cricket action. where England trails South Africa by 108 runs with 5 wickets remaining. Now on the men's side, off the field, England's white ball captain Owen Morgan officially retired from international play. The 35-year-old announced his news in a bittersweet fashion, admitting his move wasn't the easiest decision, but was the right time to do so. Morgan is the country's current leading scorer in one-day and T20 cricket with 6,957 and 2,458 runs respectively, as well as a tally of 225 ODIs and 115 T20s, which is also an England record. The 2008 long jump silver medalist Blessing Agbre is in the news following multiple breaches of anti-doping rules. The Olympian has been banned from competition for up to 11 years, increasing the initial ban by 1 year. This comes following her latest charge, which was the first under the new United States law. In other news for the Olympians, Jamaica's Shericka Jackson is looking to become the next Blur for the country. The track star ran the third fastest 200 millimeter in history in national trials, setting her up for a spot at the World Championships this coming Sunday. In the States, we have some transactions going on in the National Basketball Association, as All-Star guards John Wall and Kyrie Irving each plant their flag on their respective teams, for the foreseeable future at least. First, the Rockets agreed to buy out the Kentucky star who was claimed off waivers by the Los Angeles Clippers, joining the likes of forward Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. As for Kyrie Irving, speculation be damned as the guard picked up his $37 million player option to stay with the Brooklyn Nets after many speculations of otherwise. Lastly, in the MLB, we had a newsworthy night, including suspensions following a huge brawl between the Angels and the Mariners. Tonight we have some big games on tap, however, including 2 involving New York's finest. First, the Bronx Bombers take on the A's at home, as will the Mets, where they'll face the AL West powerhouse in the Houston Astros. It all kicks off at 7. Stay tuned for all that and all things sports across the globe. Until then, Jean-Louis, that's your sports.
That's all we have for today. For more detailed news, you can visit our website, www.freewavetv.com. On behalf of all of us here at Freewave TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you our next newscast on Thursday.